Ladies, gentlemen, and hunters of all ages, we approach the release of Monster Hunter Wilds. As the person on this channel who is trying to avoid any information about that game as possible so that I can go in totally spoiler free, but that doesn't mean that the game isn't on my mind. And with that, I have been thinking a lot about hunting games in general. This is a very sort of specific subgenre that doesn't have a lot of competition within it, the idea of the genre being that you go out on a quest to hunt a big beastie. You spend maybe an average of anywhere from 10 to 30 minutes on beating it up, depending on the game, using a weapon from your choice of various types with drastically differing movesets, and then at the end of the quest, you use materials that you gather from the beast itself to create armor and weapons with unique skills and stats and visuals that match the monsters and all that fun stuff. The highest production quality competitor that Monster Hunter has ever had within this genre is Wild Hearts, the game that I want to talk about today. It has been just over days more than 2 years since Wild Hearts released, and while it had a very bright sort of potential, it lasted for a fairly short amount of time once it released, and as of today, you rarely ever hear people talking about it anymore. So I want to talk about this game right now, what made it special, and my own personal thoughts on why it ended up sort of dying off. And as someone obsessed with the hunting subgenre, I played probably way more of that game than most people would consider healthy. It was rough around the edges, sure, a bit janky in some regards, but as what should have been the start of a new major hunting game franchise, it was an extremely solid start. The gameplay was fun, and each of the weapons was really enjoyable to play, and then the actual Kemono designs, which is the term for the monsters in Wild Hearts, were quite creative and well done too. They were funky, and I really enjoyed them. Those are the two most core parts of a hunting subgenre game, in my opinion, and Wild Hearts had an extremely good showing in both of those regards, laying down a foundation that could have been built upon with title updates or further releases in the series, with a clearly very passionate team behind actually developing the game as well, with the developers themselves, the Omega Force division of Koei Tecmo, also being the developers behind the Tokaiden series, which a lot of people count as being one of the earlier games to have a go at the hunting subgenre as well. So they've got roots in this style of gameplay, and Wild Hearts was their big, new, fresh start at something completely different, a whole new, fresh take at this kind of game. Higher budget, bigger dreams, and to try and make it successful, they brought on a publisher you'll all be familiar with, which is EA. I will say, back in the day, EA did arrange early access for us to play the game, and the people that we dealt with from their side of things were lovely. But obviously, individuals who work for the company aren't going to be representative of the decisions made by the people in charge. And I think that's an important note as we go on to what we'll be talking about today. Because I think more than anything else, the fault and blame for why Wild Hearts sputtered out lays with the publishers, not with the developers themselves. And unfortunately, that doesn't change the end result of what has happened, which is a game that died much earlier than it should have, and seems very unlikely to get an actual follow-up or sequel, even though I would personally love to see that happen and see how it evolved and learned from the first outing. So, moving on to the actual gameplay and what truly made Wild Hearts unique, probably the most polarizing part of the game was the ability to build things, from your tents, your proper rest spots on each map, to radars that tell you about nearby monsters, to full-on parts of the battle itself, with things like boxes that you can create for jump attacks, cannons you can create to actually blast the beasts in the face, even you can make a straight up wheel bike that you can mount and ride around the map as your main source of traversal, which was cool as all hell. You could make traps to contain and lock down the Kemono, you could make tools to bring down flying creatures. The actual customization through this system, the variety and the choices that you got as a hunter, allowed for an extremely unique and creative variation to most other hunting style games. And possibly the most sort of understated and underappreciated part of it was the fact that you actually got to choose where your own fast travel points were on each map, letting you really sort of customize how you wanted each region to act and where you wanted to be able to get to easily. Not only that, but some of these build combinations would even create direct counters to specific monster attacks too, that rewarded you heavily for both the knowledge of their moveset, but then also the preparation to bring the right tool for each quest and know when to use it as well. Outside of this, you could climb on monsters looking for weak points and bust them open, and the other big uniqueness was purely the weapons themselves. Sure, you have some of your more classic hunting weapon archetypes, but then there were things like the bladed umbrella, which is a super stylish parry-focused weapon with tons of aerial shenanigans too. I mean, what is not to love about that? And that's just one of the weapons. They actually got really creative, even with these more standard things that they did, like their attempt on Big Sword or Big Hammer. The game world featured 4 main maps, with each of them having their own main biome sort of, and representing each of the 4 seasons as well. The Kemono themselves were these really cool fusions between existing real-life animals for the most part, and then nature themselves, and they would always be really fitting to the map that they went on. Thematically, they fit beautifully, every single one of them, and I loved that, but they were really just connected connected with nature, like from an inner side of how they were created to begin with. Like there were monsters with branches or leaves or sap as part of their actual design, ice for the snow map as well, and this would come to but out in most of their movesets as well, where they actually use elements or things like that that are sort of related to their region, and it made the world very immersive to fight in as a result. If I had to attribute the issues, though, that this game had long term to one thing, it wouldn't be anything to do with the actual gameplay, it wouldn't be the development itself, it would be the publisher. This game simply released in a somewhat unfinished state at launch. Specifically, the optimization and the performance of the game, especially on PC, caused a lot of people to not even be able to play it to begin with, frequent crashing, things like that. It was a big problem, and the devs did work on this post-launch. Every single update, there were updates to performance, and unfortunately, it never got fully ironed out before support for the game was stopped. That said, outside of bugginess and the technical issues that it had, the game was a blast to actually play. So to me, it reeked of being forced to release earlier than it probably should have, more than anything else. But then aside from that, Wild Hearts as a game got barely any marketing at all before release. I swear I've talked to many avid Monster Hunter fans who hadn't even heard of the game before I mentioned it to them. And that to me just shows a complete mishandling of the marketing of the game from the start of that, which is 100% in the department of the publisher in this case. Post-release, the developers added more and more Kemono to Wild Hearts as well, expanding on the endgame until the summer of 2023, just a few months after release when the final major update hit the game. And in September of that year, it was revealed by a moderator on the game's official Discord server and the Reddit as well that EA had decided to end support for the game earlier than anticipated, with the official quote being, "What you think has happened to the game has unfortunately happened." In typical EA news, it seems they did not want to sit on the game and give it the time and expected it to most likely be the next Monster Hunter. Seems like it didn't turn into the multi-million-dollar big hit that they wanted and don't want to give it the love to grow. Put simply, a game that, as I said at the start, was built from the ground up to be a building block, a foundation of something that really could have become a true Monster Hunter competitor given the time to flourish into like a sequel or something, and yet the publishers just did not understand that at all. They didn't care that this was the first of a new franchise. Seemingly, they forced the game to release when it wasn't quite ready to do so, causing loads of technical issues that straight up stopped people from playing the game or buying the game to begin with. The marketing was barely existent at all for the game around this, so even those who could run it didn't always even know that it existed or that they should care about it, what the game was really all about to begin with. And then after that situation didn't result in an immediate Monster Hunter world level financial success for them, EA said, "My job here is done," and left after seemingly not doing much of anything at all. Instead, from what I can tell, nearly every hand that they had in Wild Hearts served to hurt its long-term potential and reputation. I love Wild Hearts as a game. I am happy that it exists, and I had a great time playing it back when it released. The initial playthrough was a magical time for me, and I had a great time treating it as my main hunting game for a couple of months after that too. But I consider this a firm reminder that we are all lucky as hell that Monster Hunter has the team behind it that it does. The unflinching, unwavering developers willing to take big risks, which I would actually say that Wild Hearts did actually have too, but Monster Hunter also then have the unwavering trust of the higher-ups at Capcom as well. And importantly, a few of the higher-ups of the company have some really big just personal admiration and connections to the series, and the result of that is a dev team for Monster Hunter allowed to run wild, a marketing campaign fueled by love for the product itself, and then as much post-release support as the devs could hope for as well. I want to be extremely clear that this combination of things is just so unbelievably rare in the video gaming industry, and unfortunately, Wild Hearts is a casualty of this fact. A game with massive amounts of creativity, tons of potential, really well-designed gameplay, and monsters forced out before it was quite ready, not allowed to be fixed properly, and then forced to be abandoned before it should have been. A beautiful game, left to sit out in the sun until people forget about it. But that's the thing, you can still play it, and I absolutely recommend that you do it if you like hunting games and you haven't played it before and you have nothing else on your gaming plate right now. But it's not getting updated anytime soon. And with 2 years passing since its release, it seems as confirmed as possible that we aren't going to see a sequel in this series either, as sad as that is for me to say. That just about does it for today, and everyone, a look back at Wild Hearts just after its 2-year anniversary, talking about the parts that I really liked, what made it special, and my general feelings on the game, and then just sort of the story of its relatively short life cycle, how it started, continued, and then tapered off. I hope you've enjoyed this, and if you are someone who played Wild Hearts, let me know your own feelings on the game down in the comments below. Like if you liked the video, subscribe to the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.